yeah, we just digitalized that whole board, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, we're good.
We're good? All right.
All right, so we have Scott Jansen here. Please, everybody, welcome him. We're excited to have him talk, and we got a little bit of a late start, but happy that you're all here at the Tech Academy. Thank you.
Thanks. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story, just a little bit. I know nobody wants to hear my story, but it might help you to form some questions. And I know that they say go ahead and do a presentation and then ask questions at the end, but just if you have a question, just go ahead and let me know, because I'd rather you ask the question while it's pertinent rather than wait until the end. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about that, and then I'm going to tell you about a little bit about my experience being here at the Tech Academy, what I learned, how I learned, that sort of thing. I'm going to tell you about my experience finding a job, the ups and downs of that, and maybe some tips or questions, whatever. And then since becoming employed and being a junior developer, what has been my experiences, what's worked, not worked, and a little bit about that. That'll probably be the longest part of my talk, but that's what I plan to do. All right, so a little bit about my story. I graduated from Lafayette College with degrees in chemical engineering and computer programming a long time ago, and I got a job as a computer programmer, and I enjoyed it. I learned COBOL mostly. I also learned Fortran and BASIC and a bunch of things like that, but that was a long time ago, and that's all long forgotten. I worked as a software developer for about 6 years, and then I followed another passion and I became a pastor of a church. So I was a pastor for roughly 23 years, and then my beliefs changed a lot faster than the church's beliefs changed, and so I was no longer appropriate to be a pastor of a church, and so that was the end of that career. And I thought, well, what am I going to do now? So I said, well, I used to love being a software developer long ago when I was a kid, and why don't I do that again? Because I liked it. I mean, I didn't leave it because I didn't like it. I left it because I thought I was called to something else. So I went back and said, let's go be a software developer again, and how do I do that now that I've been away for 20 some odd years? Looked around and found the Tech Academy and said, that's a good way to do it. Go to the Tech Academy, learn all these new things about new languages and new procedures and whatnot, and become spiffed up on all my programming skills, and then go from there. So I joined the Tech Academy, and I thought the training materials they put out here were excellent, in summary. A few quirks here and there, but that's okay. I finished off about roughly June 2 years ago, so 2 years and 2 months ago approximately, and I struggled with job search for about 2 months, meaning that I was putting out resumes and applications and filling in forms online, people's online forms and whatnot for about 2 months, and nothing, and it was disheartening. It was a lot of work. And then after about 2 months, I got 3 job offers in 1 week. So that was kind of weird, but that's the way it worked. And I mean, I know that people in your position, because I was there 2 years ago, I know that people are wondering, what kind of salary should I be asking for? What kind of what do you expect in this situation? And so, I mean, this may be awkward. I hope it's not, but I'll just tell you, where my story is. So they hired me at $75,000 coming out of the Tech Academy, and I was very happy with that. I worked at SBI for about 8 months. SBI is just across the river, and then they fired me. And then I was out of work for about a week, and I decided to go with recruiters. So I didn't do that the first time. I just looked on my own the first time, but then after I got fired, I said, I need a recruiter, maybe find something. I want to find something that's a better fit for me. So I worked with 3 recruiters. I did it simultaneously, 3 recruiters, and blah, blah, blah. This recruiter that I didn't know from Adam found me a job at U.S. Bank, which is 1 block away. I don't know which direction it is. I'm all turned around. But yeah, it's 1 block away from here. And I love it. I've been there for a year and a half now, roughly, and I love it there. And both jobs were C#, C#, SQL, Visual Studio, the sort of things that I learned here at the Tech Academy for the most part. So that was that. At U.S. Bank, because I had just been fired, they weren't sure what they were getting. So they did this contract to hire thing with the recruiter. So it was a 90-day contract we'll see how we like you, and then we'll decide if we want to hire you later. So they started me at 75 because that's what I was making, and they said, we'll try you out for 90 days. I got about 40 days into my 90, and then they said, we're not going to wait for the 90 days. We want to hire you. We're going to pay the fees and penalties to the recruiter, whatever it takes. We're going to hire you now. And they said, and we're going to make it 85 because we want you to not walk away. So they hired me at 85. So I said, okay. And that was cool. Been there for a year and a half. And so that's my story in brief. I don't know if that raises any questions.
Why did you get let go?
Why did I get let go? That is because of the things that I didn't learn that I'm here to teach you.
Good question.
That's a very good question. I'm going to answer that later.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yes, but that is sort of the primary core of why I'm here. Yes. Was there something else?
So I have this impression that a lot of interviews they want to see how you can solve problems.
Yeah.
Do you think because of your past experience when you went to do this job search more recently that it wasn't so much about your recent coding abilities as they already know you're proven to be able to solve problems, and now it's just teaching you new.
Yeah, I definitely. It was really weird for me because my experience was a long time ago.
Right.
But I definitely think that even though all the resume people say don't put anything 20 years old on your resume, even though they said that, I definitely think that everybody I talked to felt better about me because I had 6 years of COBOL, and I had a reference from way back who said that I was a really good software developer way back. That actually did make a difference. So does that answer that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And since this is about over 50, the people who work with you, like the people who work with, and are they over 52 or what's the?
All the people that I work with right now are all more than 20 years younger than I am, and I get along with them really well. But that's because I learned all the things that I did wrong the first time, which I'm going to get to. Yes.
Did you do anything extra while you were going to school here? Like any extra projects or?
I did some live project things, and I don't know what you mean by extra. I took the MVC class. No, I wouldn't say I did anything really all that extra. No. Okay. So at the Tech Academy, just my experience was I started off when I left the pastoral ministry. I was in Chicago, and so I stayed there, and I was online, like these people here online. And I did that for half the time that I was here, and then I moved out here physically and finished off my time here in person. And when you're doing this online, the big problems are that you're alone, nobody's watching over your shoulder. You don't have that accountability of somebody there, and you don't have the teamwork. You don't have, somebody else to go and ask, how did you work on this? You're just sort of kind of on your own. And teamwork in software is very important. Being able to communicate with other people and to learn from other people is very important. If you're really, really a loner kind of person, I think you're going to have a hard time, probably. Another thing that was important being far away was persistence. And this is something that I think is really the key to being a good software developer. It's not so much being the smartest person in the world or knowing the most in the world or anything like that. It's really about being persistent. So you can't just say, I tried this and it didn't work and I quit. I mean, you just have to keep on keeping at it until you find some solution, because there is a solution. I mean, that's not always true. It's possible that there's something that you're asked to do that has no solution. There's a skit about that with the make a green what's that?
6 parallel red.
There's a skit about that. But so it is possible to get an impossible request, but for the most part, there's a solution to everything. So you just have to keep at it. So my experience here at the Tech Academy was there was some bugs in the curriculum. So don't let them bully you, because I'm here to tell you that they sometimes make mistakes. They'll say, do this, and then you should get this, and you should get this, and sometimes it doesn't work because they did something wrong. And so don't think, oh, I'm stupid. If you get through the curriculum and you hit something that doesn't work, you've got to tell Kendra or whoever, say, hey, I did this, this, and this, and it didn't work, because sometimes that happens. Just for those of you, it doesn't happen a lot, but it does happen sometimes. Sorry about that, Danny. But
Just a couple of years ago, we
yeah, I helped them work out the bugs. I helped them work out the bugs in the curriculum. So now they're all gone. But that was my experience. And so moving here, I did the live projects and stuff like that. Worked with teams, and that was good. It's really hard to learn source control without having a team. It's really hard to learn merge conflicts, how you do a merge conflict when you don't have a team. It's really hard to learn a lot of things without being in a team. So you can learn a lot on your own, but being here and doing stuff in teams is really important. So that's my experience being at the Tech Academy in brief. Any questions about that part? Okay. So finding a job, I would say that what worked for me, and I know it's probably not true for everybody, what worked for me was rather than saying, let me produce the most number of applications that I can possibly produce in my day, what I did was to say, I'm going to focus on maybe 3 or 4 applications in a day, and I'm going to do a really good job with them. When I say really good job, I mean I'm going to research this company. I'm going to learn about this company, learn about the people who are recruiting, look up their LinkedIn pages, the people who are recruiting. I'm going to learn about them, and I'm going to write a cover letter that shows them that I am particularly interested in this company. Because, when you get a whole bunch of applications from people that have no idea who you are, it's very easy to just sort of just skim through them. So that was my experience and that would be my recommendation, is do a really, really good job in the jobs you want to get. Do a really, really good job. Do all your research, and if you're going to, I'm not saying spend less time. Okay, if you're going to spend 8 hours today on finding a job, spend 8 hours today on finding a job. What I'm saying is, I would rather you spend 8 hours finding 3 jobs than spend 8 hours finding 20 jobs. Because if you're finding 20 jobs in your 8 hours, you're probably not doing enough research. That's my opinion. Danny would disagree, but I'm just throwing it out there.
I like that opinion.
Okay. You can weigh the pros and cons of different people's opinions and take it for what it's worth. Now this brings me to my time at SBI. So how did I get fired? What happened there? Well, when I got to SBI, I felt like I was the oldest guy there, and I was the most junior programmer there. There was 20 people there that knew a lot more about coding than I did, and so I kind of felt like that I needed to be respected in some way. I needed to show them that I know what I'm doing, and I needed to have some sort of authority because I was older than all of them, and that was definitely not the right approach to take. It was awkward because I didn't really get a lot of help from people. There were people that were more senior than I am that needed to be helping me, and I had a hard time figuring out the path to get help from them, and that was largely my fault. Partly their fault, but largely my fault. And so a lot of bad things happened to me there because people didn't like me. And a part of why they didn't like me was because I was older than they were. But a part of why they didn't like me was because I was a pastor, and they didn't like that part. So that was a little bit of it, but that was probably not the biggest thing. And so some bad things happened to me. For example, I would have a task given to me, and I would code this task up and put it in and commit it to our source control and go on to the next task. And then 2 weeks later, the boss would be screaming at me, what happened to this thing that I gave you 2 weeks ago? And I said, it was done. It was tested 2 weeks ago. What's the matter? And it was gone. And it was literally gone because somebody had gone into the source control and overwritten it because they wanted to get me in trouble. So things like that happened to me. And so how did I get fired? I got fired because that happened. That sort of thing happened to me a number of times. Because really, in a way, I didn't get along with my coworkers, and they didn't get along with me. Now, this place that I worked at, SBI, was. I mean, there's a spectrum of cultures. Okay, let's say SBI is a place that is a plant nursery, a nursery growing place. They grow plants and they sell plants, that kind of thing. They write the software for people who are selling plants, and they also deal a lot with marijuana and that sort of thing. And let's just say, to make a long story short, on the spectrum of cultures, SBI is an extremely liberal culture. There's a lot of drug use in the workplace, a lot. In the bosses, in the employees, a lot. And I didn't fit in culturally, okay? And this was partly my fault, because I didn't use a recruiter, and I didn't know what I was doing, and I was just looking for a job, and I got these 3 job offers, and I was stupid enough to say, I'll take the one with the highest price tag. Rather than, what I should have done was say, which of these 3 companies am I a better cultural fit for? Because I took the company that gave me the best salary, and that got me in trouble. That was a really bad idea. So I made a bunch of mistakes. And so I got fired. Any questions about that?
How did you bounce back after getting fired? That sounds like a really hard.
It was brutal. It was brutal. Yeah. Well, I mean, I'd never been fired before, so that was hard, and it really was a matter of, I don't want to be homeless, and I've got to just persistent. You got to be persistent. You just have to say, well, I know that I'm a good coder because I solved these problems, even though they got reverted back out of TFS. But I solved the problems, and I know I'm a good coder. So I'll just keep on keeping on. Went to some recruiters. They found me some job possibilities, and there was this company that said, we'll give you the 90-day contract to hire thing, and I said, sure, I'll prove myself. I don't want you to trust that I'm a good coder. I'll prove myself, and I think that's the way to go, really. I think you all should go for the 90-day contract to hire thing. That's a great way to do it, because you might find out in those 90 days that you don't fit there, and you might be happy to be able to get out, possibly. I mean, not saying that it's going to happen, but it could happen. And so if you have that option, I say jump on it.
What's the percentage of salary do you lose during that time because you're in a contract thing? Is there some kind of...
Oh, yeah, that gets really complicated.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like 10%?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the figures.
Got it.
But
You
it's
do
not
think
it's
so.
not good. It's not good. It's not
Okay.
good. When they say we're going to cancel this contract thing and hire you full time early, that's good. Yeah, I don't know the numbers, but yeah.
Going back to when you had the decision between the 3,
Yes.
the first time you chose money over culture.
Yes.
Well, what if you only had one choice? And
Well, if you only have one choice,
and you thought the culture may not work, but it's the only choice,
yeah.
go ahead and do it, or just wait?
That's a tough question. I mean, there's so many things that enter into that question. One is, how much can you wait because your financial situation just can't deal with that, or can you if you keep looking another month, that one that you have now may not be the only one. It's possible. You don't know, but it's possible. But you can't tell them I want to think about it for a month. If they're going to give you an offer now, you got maybe 3 days, maybe, to give them an answer. And so you do have to make a decision. And I don't know how to advise you on that, really. It's probably, if you're desperate and need a job and just can't wait any longer, it's probably best to just jump on it if that's your only choice. Because in the software industry, a lot of people don't last very long in jobs, and it's not seen as a horrible thing. If you get fired after 8 months, it's not like the end of the world. I was very open with all my recruiters, with everybody. So I was working here. I was doing well. I brought some of the software I had on my laptop because I knew things were getting rocky for me there. So I had some of the stuff that I had done that I could sort of demonstrate without like revealing any company secrets or showing anybody code or anything like that. Or, I'm not doing anything bad, but just stuff I could demonstrate. Here, I wrote this code that does this, and I put some of that on my laptop, it's not a terrible thing to admit to the recruiters that I got fired. It's not the end of the world. So if you feel like you have to jump on it, I say jump on it. Yeah.
I've had more than one friend come up here visiting from the Bay Area, and people I hadn't seen in a long time ask me what I'm doing. Or getting into code.
Yeah.
And invariably, if someone's from the Bay Area, the first thing out of their mouth is, "Oh, are you? How are you handling all the ages?"
Yeah.
in
Oh,
the
there's
job
definitely
market?"
ages.
And I just have my response is to look at them like looking out of space, because I just am not. Maybe it's there, but I'm not feeling it.
Yeah.
What is your? I mean, you mentioned having an issue that you felt arose on your side out of the age differential between
Right.
your coworkers.
Right.
Have you heard, or I mean, is that just a Bay Area thing, or do you feel it?
No, I think there's definitely ageism. I mean, there is, but you have to be smart enough to get around it. And I mean, here's the thing. Well, let me give you a pop quiz. All right, see who's ready for a job. Give you a pop quiz. So let's say you just got hired a week ago. You've been there a week. You got your computer set up. You got your software loaded. You got your password figured out. You know how to sign in. Blah blah blah. And you've been there a week, and you get your first task. And you go through. You got 5 parts A, B, C, D. You go through A, B, C. You're feeling good. Yeah, I can do this. I can do this. You get to D, and you know that the senior developer 2 cubes over knows how to do this, and you don't know how to do it. And you just literally do not know how to solve this problem. And so you come to the conclusion that there's no way I'm going to do part D unless I'm able to get help. Okay, that's the scenario. All right? So here's the pop quiz. What do?
Ask the senior developer, help.
Ask the senior developer for help.
I asked the senior to pair code it or whiteboard it.
What?
I asked him to pair code it or whiteboard it with me just to get me started.
Getting closer.
Call
Getting
my
closer.
friends who know this stuff and say, hey, help me in this case.
Maybe.
You're supposed to actually on your own look up the documentation for the code that you're using so you can try to figure it out on your own and then say, I've researched this, and I'm still kind of stuck. What am I missing?
Gold star. There's the answer. Just so I can repeat what she said. That is, you were close. You were close.
We did all that before.
The way you're supposed to approach this is your task here when you get to D. Your task is to convince the senior developer that you have done everything that you can do. That's the most important thing. Convince your senior developer you have done everything that you know how to do. And you're stuck. That's the way you got to do it. Now, if you just say, I'm stuck, go ask the senior developer, that's not going to work for you. You're in trouble, okay? Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I actually take the approach, I know I'm old and I use email and people say email is for old people. I get that. But email is really cool for this one thing. What you can do is you can actually take a screenshot and say, hey, senior developer, I took this step, and this step, and I pushed go, and it gave me this error message screenshot. What am I doing wrong? That is the gold star. Okay? You with me? Email the senior developer. You're not asking the senior developer to interrupt her or his thinking process. You're not saying, I'm more important than you are. Answer my question now. You're sending an email. When you have a minute, I did this, and this. I got this message. If you have any help for me, I'd appreciate it. Okay? That is the way to go about it. Okay? You with me? Yeah.
So if they took too long to answer that, what do you do in the meantime?
Always have multiple things on your plate, because I have roughly 6 to 8 things on my plate at any given time. And the question is, I'm sorry, I should repeat the question. The question is, what if they take too long to answer you? And the answer is, you should never just have one thing that you're working on. I know in the Tech Academy you have you go through the curriculum and you get to point A and you get to point B and you get to point C, and then the next thing is to do point D. But in the real world, it's not like that. You should always have a bunch of things that you're working on. So if you get stuck here, you can just work on this until you get unstuck. And so that's my answer to that. Any other questions about that stuff? Why I got fired, that sort of thing? Okay. So I've been working at the bank for a while now, and a couple of things. So as a junior developer, here's something that really bothers your employee. Okay, your employer. You may not know this, but something that really bothers your employer is if every time they walk past you, your phone is in your hand. So when you're at work, your phone should not be part of your focus. Your phone should not be part of your world. When you're at work, you should be at work. Okay? Now, yes, there are emergencies. Okay, I get that. Emergencies, somebody broke their arm, somebody's in the hospital, that happens. But, somebody went to the grocery store and put a picture on Facebook, that's not an emergency. That's not a reason to look at your phone. Okay? So if you're looking at your phone all day long, that's a problem. And you need to put your phone on vibrate or whatever, put it away somewhere, look at it, in the morning on your way to work, put it away, look at it at lunchtime, put it away, and look at it when you're done. Okay? 3 times in the day. That's it. Don't look at it all during the day. Because they want you to be at work when you're at work. Okay? Any reactions to that?
It's tricky to navigate if you have elderly parents or young children.
Yeah.
You need to have your phone available.
Well, yeah, having a phone you can put it in your pocket and turn on vibrate. But what I'm saying is emergencies shouldn't be happening every day. If you're dealing with, I guess, well, all right, I'll respond to that. So the question was, what do we do with elderly parents and that sort of thing when you're dealing with elderly parents? We just had an employee at the bank who was dealing with elderly parents, and he was the only son of his mom who was getting older and needing help, blah, blah, blah. And he was spending more and more time each day on the phone with her, giving her help in this and that. And he got let go. And you might say, that's terrible. But that's the real world. And I guess what I'm saying is he got let go and he had been at the bank for 10 years. Okay? And my point is that as a junior developer, you just can't afford to tell your boss, I need to be on my phone 12 times a day. You just, if you really want the job, that's not an option. So if you and what he's done after leaving the bank is he's gone and moved in with his mom, and he's spending his full time helping his mom, and his mom is going to give him part of the inheritance and blah blah blah. And so that's where his focus is, because that's where his focus needs to be. And everybody at the bank wishes him well and says you did the right thing and praises him and gives him a cake and sends him off with their blessing. But you just can't be doing that at work. Any thoughts about that? Okay.
Oh, something a little bit different. What's your workspace like? Are you cubicles? Or are you like open?
At SBI, we were open. Everybody was looking over everybody's shoulders and big open space. And at the bank, it's all cubicles. So I got, I don't know, whatever it is, 7 feet by 7 feet or whatever it is, 4 feet high, something like that. I got 2 really big monitors. That's really cool. I don't know if you've ever had 2 really big monitors, but it makes a huge difference. Okay, don't work at a place unless they give you 2 monitors. They don't have to be really huge. They don't have to be really huge. But seriously, don't work at a place unless they give you 2 monitors. That's like a serious tip here, because it makes an enormous difference to how productive you can be. Just enormous. I never had 2 monitors ever until I went to work at SBI, and I got 2 monitors of like a life-changing event for me.
So do you pair, or do you work on your own, or do you do a mix of both?
That's a great question. Do we pair, or do we work on our own, or what do we do with that? So we do code reviews. So basically there's a backlog list, and so you grab the next thing off the backlog list, you work on it. When you're done, you check it into source control, and then you send it to a code collaborator tool, which means that everybody else has an opportunity to look at your code and to put comments on it, and which are kept forever, these comments, and they can put a comment saying this is a bug, which sometimes happens, or this is not documented well enough. I can't understand what's going on here, or something like that. And then we have code reviews where we get together and we do what's called a WebEx screen share thingamajiggy, conference call screen share thingy, and we put our code up there and we just walk the other people through. So there's like 6 people on my team. We just say, I did this and I did that, and the reason I did this because I thought it was faster if I did it this way, and whatever. And we talk it through, and most of the time they have suggestions. Oh, you could have done this, you could have done that, and we learn from each other. There's 6 of us, and we learn from each other. And so that's a really cool. Doing stuff together in a team is a really important thing. And this is very important. Okay, as a junior developer, when you do your first code review, everyone is going to tell you how you could have done it better. And if you're not ready for that, if that's going to bother you, have a drink of wine before you get there. Because that can't bother you, okay? Just calm down. Everyone's going to tell you you could have done it better, and that's okay, because that's how you learn. When people tell you you could have done it better this way, you should say, thank you so much for teaching me how I could have done it better. Don't say, oh, you think I could have done it better? No. Right? You with me?
Yeah. How big of a leap is it from coding here to coding in Berkeley?
How big of a leap is it from coding the Tech Academy exercises to coding in the real world? It is a leap. You start somewhere. You're learning how to learn here. You're learning how to find answers, and you're learning how to look up things and figure out solutions. And when you get out into the real world, the solutions get a lot more complicated and a lot bigger. And you're not spending. Most of these Tech Academy exercises, would take an hour, right? They're not complicated. If you're really focused and not looking at your dog or whatever, if you're focused, you can do them in an hour. Most of the stuff out in the real world is your task is going to take you 2 days. So typically, so they're bigger tasks, and there's more to figure out. But you're learning how to learn. So I didn't feel like there was anything in the real world. I didn't feel like there was very much that I was really unprepared for, because I had learned how to learn. Now there are certain things that I wish that they had taught me better at the Tech Academy. Some things I wish they had spent more time or more emphasis on, and I actually made some notes about those things. So, I wish that in the SQL course, would have been a lot bigger, because I did not learn here. I did not learn much about how to put together stored procedures with parameters. I did not learn much about coalesce statements or triggers, how to write triggers in SQL. A trigger is like whenever somebody adds a record to this table, then then that triggers that SQL just automatically puts a log record into this log table over here, and so it's just a trigger you put in the SQL database. They didn't teach me that sort of thing. They didn't teach me views. Where you set up a view of a table. I don't know if this is going over everybody's head, but there's a number of things in SQL that I wish they had done a better job with. Servers. I wish I had known more about servers, like how to restart services on servers, how server security and stuff like that worked. I didn't know as much about that as I would have liked to have known. And security. granularity of user security, so that you're going to construct an app and you need your users of this app to have 4 levels of access. And how do you work out that security stuff? They didn't really, I didn't really learn as much about that stuff as I wished that I had when I was in the Tech Academy. So there are some things that, like, I wish I'd known more, but by and large, overall, I felt very much prepared. I felt very much like I can do this job, and there's nothing in here that's going to defeat me, and the stuff I don't know I can look up, and if I do it correctly, I can ask for help. And I was okay. Yeah. Yes?
Kind of along those lines, challenge I am having is I got out of school, I got a job, it's not panning out quite the way I wanted to, so I've been looking elsewhere, and 6 to 8 months haven't really got very much attention from any of the resumes and whatnot I've been sending out. And I'm feeling like I'm going for like a business analyst, database type work, SQL sort of direction.
Yeah.
And I'm noticing that a lot of the courses have or asking for experience in things like SAS or some kind of data visualization tool that I didn't learn about in school.
Right.
So without lying on my resume and kind of painting myself into a corner later, how am I going to get this experience like they'll check in anything?
Right. Yeah, on your resume for being a junior developer, I would say the focus of your resume should be on showing them that you are good at learning. The focus should not be on look at all the things that I have learned. It should be on see how good at learning I am. I can be a junior developer that walks into your institution, and I will pick up all the stuff in your institution quickly because I'm a good learner. That's where I think you should focus on in your resume. Does that help at all?
Yeah.
What about work hours? Do you work bank hours in some companies?
My boss is really nice to me. They let you work whenever you want, as long as you put in 8 hours a day roughly. So I actually work from 6:45 in the morning until 3.
But you're not doing stuff more than 40 hours a week, it sounds like.
No, I'm really, really, for the most part, working 40 hours a week. I mean, there are some times when I'm working 45, but I'd say maybe 1 out of 5 weeks I'm working 45. But typically, I'm working 40 hours a week. Yeah.
But
It's way, way, way easier than being a pastor.
But if it was a startup type job, they might expect you to work more than 40 hours a week because everyone.
Oh, if you're working for a startup company, you're working for a small startup company. Oh, then yes. SBI was closer to being a small startup company. They weren't quite that, but closer to that. And when I was working at SBI, I was working between 50 and 60 hours a week. Absolutely, always. So really, I would say the hours question is going to be dependent on how old your institution is, really. If it's a startup, 60 hours a week, definitely.
So what were some of the institutions kind of between the startup and the mature industry that you applied to that you would have really loved, places you would have really liked to work for? Or places that were interested in hiring?
Well, I mean, okay, so I got one job offer from a place called Genesis Financial, something like that. They actually came here and gave a tech talk around the time that I was looking, and that was a place in Beaverton. And it was a financial services industry, but they've been around for like 15, 20 years and fairly established and had a fairly large team. And it wasn't a startup, but it wasn't like U.S. Bank. The 4th largest bank in the country. I mean, it's not. There's a degree. So, I don't know. Does that answer your question?
Let me rephrase it.
Yeah.
So, between the really mature industries and the startups,
yeah.
why did you apply to these other
Oh,
types of, like, what was it about the culture that
right.
you,
Okay, right.
attracted
So
you?
why did I apply to where the places where I did
Was it
apply to?
just because you needed a
Yeah.
job, or
So at
because you-
first, when I was in the Tech Academy and I was graduating, at first I just applied to anything that I felt like I could do that job. Anything that described a job and I thought I could do that, I applied there. And I basically was stupid enough to just say, whichever one has the highest salary, that's where I'm going. Then, after I got fired from SBI, I looked at, I said, I need to be in a corporate culture that is large enough and established enough where prejudice and ageism and that kind of thing won't be tolerated, because it's not tolerated. And you get into a big corporate culture like U.S. Bank, whether you're a racist or whether you're, don't like Muslims, or whether you're, a sexist or whatever, you don't like the fact that the boss is a woman, you get into a place like U.S. Bank, that's not tolerated. I mean, absolutely not tolerated.
So how did you go about researching cultures of these other companies? 'Cause they,
Oh, yeah,
you can
researching
kind of
cultures.
tell some
Yeah,
things
you
by website,
right.
but not until you're kind of really talking to people.
Right. Yeah. No. A little bit of all of that. So yes, you do look at their website, and you do research what their statements are and what they choose to prioritize in their corporate mission statements, and say, if inclusiveness and diversity is a value that they hold highly, then they'll put it in a place of honor in their statements, in their corporate culture statements.
Did you talk to people? Did
Yeah.
you go to Glassdoor? Did you?
Yeah, I looked up reviews, and I did all of those things. Yeah, you got to do everything you're saying to try to figure out what the culture is like of the place that you're thinking about. All of the things that she's saying. Yes.
So one of the problems I'm having with looking at cultures in some of the bigger companies is I'm getting a lot of, we don't do shadowing or informational interviews because they don't really want you to be there and see their code. Is that something you ran into, or is it just by chance I'm getting companies that don't really like?
They don't want you to be on the premises because they don't want you to see their code.
Well, so the couple of, so I looked at like Big Fish and Microsoft were the two, and they didn't really want me to job shadow with them because they were comfortable having people.
Oh, job shadow.
Yeah.
So like as an intern, just not an unpaid intern, you're just going to job shadow them.
Well, just so job shadow is just take a day and
Yeah.
kind of see what the work environment is like.
The U.S. Bank wouldn't let you job shadow either. No, I think that's probably pretty common. I mean, somebody's just going to be there for a short period of time, like a week or something like that, and going to look at their code and then go away. I would say there's going to be a lot of companies that are not going to like that. I would say that's probably very common.
It's just the field then, because I know a lot of the other fields, that's not tech related. You can do job shadows.
Yes, that is true, but not in the not in the software developer. You're not going to be. I don't think you're going to find a job shadow place very easily. All right. So, yeah.
Ergonomics, so keeping your body healthy as an older
Yeah.
person, typing all the time and your wrists, and what do you do?
Oh, yeah. So,
Yeah, I mean,
right. Yeah. Well, that's part of why I decided I want to work at a bigger company, and I would recommend to anybody. I mean, I'm just one person, so take it or leave it for what it's worth. I mean, it's just my opinion, but I would say anybody who's an older person, work for an older company, work for a bigger company, because when I worked at SBI, they were all kids, and it was a very uncomfortable environment. It was very noisy. They had a lot of loud music on, and they liked that. They liked the loud music. They all had Nerf guns, and they all shot each other with Nerf guns all the time. And and it was just noisy, and the chairs were uncomfortable. Like literally, chairs were uncomfortable. The monitors were small, and it was just it was okay for the kids, but I say kids, I mean 30-year-olds. I mean, but I don't mean any offense. But I would say work for. I was at U.S. Bank, and I said I'm getting older and I don't see as well as I used to see. Could I have a bigger monitor than this size monitor? And they said sure, and they got me this size monitor. And you know, it probably cost the bank $1,000, but I didn't have to beg and plead them. I just said, you know, could I have this? And they said sure. And that's the kind of thing that the bank does for people. So, and I think if you're in a larger place like that, they want diversity. The bank, like places like the bank, they want diversity. They want to have a mixture of older and younger people. They like that. They think that's adding value to their team because people have different perspectives on things and they can learn from one another if they're diverse. If they're all the same, nobody learns anything from anybody because they're all thinking the same. So a place that's mature enough and big enough to realize that is really going to want to include older people in the workforce. So the bank has done nothing but support me 100%. And the younger people, I mean, I don't even know what kind of movies they're talking about. I don't even know these actors and actresses they're talking about. I don't know anything they're talking about. The songs they listen to, I don't understand any of it. But they get along with me okay. I mean, we talk about code. We do code reviews. You know, we get along just perfectly fine. You know, we're very professional. We say, you know, you could have done it this way. You could have done it that way. I have no qualms about being friends with these 30-year-olds at my workplace at all. I feel very comfortable there.
So what code languages are you actually using at US Bank
Right.
specifically?
That's a great question. So I started out in C# and SQL over at SBI, and then I got a job in C# and SQL at US Bank. And then I was there for a little less than a year, and they said, you know, you've done such a good job with all the C# stuff that we had for you that we've run out of work for you. So we want you to learn Perl.
Okay.
So, because we got a lot of work in Perl in our backlog. So I learned Perl. It was not a big deal because I had been through the Tech Academy and I learned all these different languages, and learning a new language was not a big deal. So I learned Perl. They paid me while I was learning Perl. And and then I've been working in Perl for the last couple of months. So right now, most of the coding I'm doing it in Perl, which I did not learn here at all. I learned Python here, and Python is a scripting language, and you know where you don't compile and make a DLL, you just sort of interpret each line at a time, a scripting language. So I learned Python here, and learning Python made it easier for me to learn Perl, because they're kind of cousins in a way, sort of. Right?
So when you were learning Perl, were you doing that at your job day to day, and they just had you do classes, and that's what you were doing until you were able to take on those projects?
Yep, exactly so. I spent 4 days, 3.5 days. I spent 3.5 days where my only job was to learn Perl, period. And yeah, I didn't get any docking pay or anything like that. It's just ordinary salary, and yeah. And the bank, does that. So my next, when this pile runs out, I'm going to learn C++, because now we're projecting down the road, and we're looking and finding that we're going to have a bunch of C++ jobs to do. So I don't know how fast I'm going to burn through this pile, but a few months from now, I'm going to be learning C++. After that, I don't know. Maybe I'll go back to C#. I don't know. That's important. That is important. As a junior developer, you're the least. As the junior developer, you're the least important resource on the team. The ones who've been there for 10 years and who really, really, really know this really, really well, they don't want to take that person off of there and plug them into where there's a big need, where there's a big pileup. So wherever there's a big pileup, and they got to move people around, you're the one they're going to want to move around. So as a junior developer, you've got to be willing to say, "Hey, if you're going to train me, I'll learn," and say it gratefully, because you're learning a new skill. So you're becoming more marketable. So when they say we want to teach you Perl, say thank you.
You just spoke about an incident where you had to teach yourself something
Yeah.
new.
Right.
In your current job. What if somebody has that experience from a previous dev job, and it might be a long time ago, and you earlier said, demonstrate on your resume that you know how to learn.
Yeah.
How would you have described your self-taught learning experience on your resume.
Right.
Because that's kind of where I am right now.
Yeah.
I'd love to be able to explain that in 20 words or less.
Yeah. Yeah. So the question is, how do you describe in your resume that you're a good learner?
Mm-hmm.
And
Because you said that was a big selling point.
that is a very important selling point. How you do it in your resume.
How would you do it in yours with the, suppose you were looking for a new job right now?
Yeah.
How would you describe your experience at U.S. Bank having to teach yourself Perl? To demonstrate that you know how to go.
I would have to give that some thought. I don't know that I have a quick answer to that. When I work on writing resumes, it takes me a really long time because I'm looking at it from all different perspectives, and
Because a lot
I don't.
of us have coursework under our belts.
Yeah.
So obviously we know how to learn in certain types of ways, but
Right.
the self-taught ways, you seem to point out that that's important to
Right.
either convey in an interview or on your resume.
Right. Right. Yeah. I think what the employers are looking for is that you're not somebody who wants to be paid to be a software developer, but that you're somebody who passionately loves being a software developer. I love this so much that I am going to just keep on working on this until I find the solution, because that's how much I love it. I'm not just here because I kind of feel like this is a good way to make money. But you want to, in some way, you want to convey your passion for problem solving. And I use the word puzzle in my resume, and I talked about how when I was 2 years old, my favorite toy was puzzles, and I talked about how I just loved the rush of making a puzzle from the time I was 2 years old, and that's kind of who I am, ingrained biologically. And so I was trying to convey the notion that I am driven to solve the problem, to learn whatever I need to learn to get it done. But how other people would do that, I don't really know. I'd have to give that some thought. I don't know if that really answers your question, but that's the best I could do. What did I miss? Let's see. Oh, right. Make it easy for the senior developer to help you. So how do you, when you need the senior developer to teach you something, don't think, I've got this task, I've got to figure out how I can get this help so that I can get my task done. You need to think, how can I make it as easy as possible for the senior developer to help me? That's where your focus needs to be, on because that's what your employer's focus is on, is keeping your senior developer as effective and productive as possible. That's what your boss is looking at. Are you hurting the senior developer's productivity? That's more important than what was your productivity today, because your productivity today may be very small compared to the senior developer today. But you want to be able to learn, but the question is, how can you help the senior developer to help you in the way that is the least painful for the senior developer? So how do you do that? Well, anybody have any ideas? How do you do that? Yeah.
You ask him where to find the answers, not to give them to you.
Right. Another thing is, yes, that's true. Another thing is, you always want to convey to the senior developer that you have a mechanism for remembering everything that you hear. In other words, the senior developer does not want to think that I may have to teach you this again. Okay? You want to don't do this. Don't say, hey, can you show me how to make this thing work? I'm going to watch over your shoulder and you show me. And so you watch over the senior developer's shoulder and they show you, and then you go away. Don't do that. Bring a notepad, or bring a laptop, or bring something, and if you don't understand why they're pressing 4 instead of pressing 5 at this point, ask the question so that the senior developer gets the message that you're going to be able to reproduce this on your own later without them having to teach you this again. Okay? So you got to think like that. You got to think, how can I make it happy for the senior developer to teach me? What are they worried about? Right? That's got to be your focus.
point will you no longer feel like you're a junior developer?
I'm already there.
You just keep referring to yourself as a junior developer.
Well,
so.
that was because that's the name of the title of the talk.
Oh, okay.
But I've been at the bank for a year and a half now, and I've hired 2 people to come in, one in November and one in March. 2 people in the last year, and they're both my mentees. And so the person who was my mentor when I first started at the bank has basically been told by the boss, Scott doesn't need your help anymore. We're going to put you over here now. And essentially, I'm the boss of my little world right now. And I've got these other people that work for me. I'm essentially the senior developer in my little bubble right now.
So after you reach that point, what happens to like your mentor? Do you still have someone you consider a mentor? Do they assign you a new one? Or?
The person who was assigned to help me at the beginning at the bank still works at the bank. He's still 3 cubes over, and if I need to talk to him, he's still open and happy to help me. But that happens maybe once every 3-4 months. And he's very happy to help me once every 3 or 4 months. But did I answer your question?
Yeah.
He's there, and as long as I'm asking him questions that he knows that there's no other way I could get this answer but to ask him, then he's fine.
Do you think with working at the bank in particular, do your mentors kind of help cultivate your career, or do they just stick to helping you complete tasks?
I would say mostly the latter. I mean, you're kind of the question was, do the mentors at the bank sort of help you with your career in general, or do they mostly help you with your tasks? And the answer was mostly the latter. And I would say you're probably the one who needs to be responsible for your career. So if you really, really don't want to learn Perl, and you would like to rather to stay with C# instead when they tell you that they're redeploying you, then you'd have to be responsible for doing that. You may have to take a salary cut, whatever. I don't know what you may be pushed to another branch of the bank. You may be redeployed somewhere else. I don't know what might happen. But if that's your career thing, is you just want to only do C# because that's your career thing, you've got to be responsible for that. They're not going to be thinking about that for you. Let's see what else I forgot to tell you. One more thing. As a junior developer, this is really hard to balance. I know that. I recognize that. But on the one hand, you have to be humble. On the other hand, you have to challenge things you don't understand. Okay? So when they're showing you their code and they're saying, I did this, and the for each loop did this, and went that way, and you don't understand it, do it humbly, but don't let it go. Don't just say, well, I'm stupid, I don't understand it, I'm just, I'll learn it someday. The only way you're going to learn it is if you say, I don't understand why you did that. But say it nicer than that. Say it much nicer than that. Say it much nicer than that. But don't let it go. Don't just allow the people who are smarter than you, not smarter than you, more experienced in coding than you, don't just allow them to run over you without explaining things when you don't understand what they're doing. Don't allow that to happen, because you won't learn. Your job as a junior developer, your job is to learn, right? You are not going to be the most productive employee at the bank. Your job, number one job, is to learn. So the way you learn is by asking questions. So when you have the opportunity to look at somebody else's code, you're doing code review, that's your golden opportunity to learn. So take advantage of that. What you might do, you might be tempted to not say anything, because if I ask a question, it's going to seem like I'm stupid. If I ask a question, it's going to seem like I don't know as much as other people do, so I'm just not going to ask a question. Don't do that. Okay? It doesn't matter if you seem like you don't know what you're doing. Don't do that. Ask the question. Okay? But do it humbly. Nicer than I did. Any questions about that? Yeah. Oh, and you know, back to the ageism thing. There is ageism, and you have to learn fast as a junior developer and show people that you're willing to learn, because they don't want you around as a junior developer if you're not learning. But if you're older, if you're like over 50 and you're an older person, it's even more important that you learn fast. Because if you're an older person and you're not learning fast, they're really not going to want to keep you around. So it's more important than it would be for a 30-year-old that you show them that you're learning fast. I know that's not fair. It isn't fair, but that's the way it is. I think that's all I had on my list.
Do you think someone out of school without any real world experiences could get a work-at-home job? I have a feeling you wouldn't recommend that.
I would not recommend that. I think that for the teamwork aspect of the ease of being able to just walk over and look over your shoulder, and the question was for the people away from here, is it a good idea to get a work-from-home job right out of school? I would not recommend that. There's a lot of sharing that goes on, and there's also the employer trust level. Okay, so a lot of times employers will want you to work at times when they can watch you for a while until they've developed trust in you. They know what to expect out of you. They know that you're going to be able to finish this much work in this much time, and then they're willing to say, you know, I know what to expect out of Joe. He's going to finish this much work in this much time. If he wants to do it at home, fine, do it at home. But and we're paying him this much, and we're okay with that. But in the very beginning, they don't know what to expect, and they honestly don't know if they want to keep you around. And Oregon is a at-will, whatever it's called, state. So, you know, as a junior developer, you have no protection. They don't have to have a good reason. They could just say, you know, I don't feel like you're learning fast enough. You know, see ya. There's no. So I would not recommend pressing for that. I would not recommend pressing for that. Anything else?
So what's the production like? How much are you getting done? How much are you expected to get done?
Well, okay. So how much are you expected to get done? At the SBI, I was expected to be learning mostly at the beginning. For the first, I'd say the first 2 months, I was mostly expected to be learning. But I was learning by doing. I was given very simple tasks. You know, there's always a pile of things to do, and they'll take the easiest thing on the pile and give that to the junior most developer. And so I was getting things done from the first week there. I was getting some things done, but they were easy things. They're things that if they took me, you know, 2 days, the senior developer could have done them in 10 minutes. But it was mostly a learning exercise for me. And so I was getting things done, but you know, my speed was very slow at first, right out of the Tech Academy. And what mattered was that I was demonstrating that I was learning, not how much I was getting done. It was that I was demonstrating that I was learning. Mm-hmm. So.
And that's good, right? I mean, there's a huge amount of cultural information in any company, and it takes you 6 months just to figure out how to move around and be effective. And half of that's what makes you juniors, you just don't know how to do it.
A lot of times, it does take a very long time to learn all the cultural in a company, the cultural norms and the nuances of how to help people to work with other people. A lot of what I do, I don't know if this is interesting to you. If it is, a lot of what I do is complain to the salespeople that they didn't get enough information from the customers. So this is like a huge part of my job that I didn't expect. Okay, they didn't tell me this at the Tech Academy. Okay, the salespeople sell products to their customers, and then they figure out what the customer wants. Oh, you want your file to have this column and this column and this column, and it goes here and here, and then they write it down and they send it to the developer, and they say, we need to send this file, this kind of file to this customer. And you get their document of what you're supposed to do, and they think that they've given you an adequate document. and they're always wrong. So I find that I swear to you, I spend 40% of my day convincing the salespeople that they have not given me enough information. That's a really big part of my job. Because why can't you just, all right, let me explain it to you. The reason that I can't just is because, I mean, I get this all the time. This is what I get. I give what I got today. So if this field is a 1, do it this way. If it's a 2, do it that way. Okay. What if it's not a 1 or a 2? Oh, that won't happen.
Yeah. You get 3, 4, and 5.
Okay.
Not
So
planned.
so if that won't happen, bear with me now. If that won't happen, then if I test for it and I say if it's not a 1 or a 2, then abort the program with this message. That's okay with you, right? No, you can't abort the program. But you just said that won't happen.
This is where they need to understand your language.
I have this kind of conversation every day.
Ooh. Oh, that's computer
So,
information systems.
I mean, that's a big part of the job. You've got to be able to deal with people and explain to them why they're wrong. Because if they're salespeople, they're always wrong. Yeah.
How much time do you think you actually spend coding as opposed to dealing with everything else?
I probably spend 40% of my time coding, 40% of my time getting good requirements, and 20% of my time doing administrative garbage. Yeah. 40% coding.
So 40% is just really happy and the rest is the day.
You know, I kind of like teaching. I mean, I was a college professor for a little while, and I kind of like teaching. So when I'm teaching the salespeople how they ought to be doing things, I'm okay with that. I don't mind it. It's not my favorite part of the day. I mean, my favorite part of the day is the coding part. But I don't mind the rest of the job. But I do want to, I do want you to know that you're not going to walk into a job and spend 8 hours coding. I mean, that doesn't happen.